So, yeah, what do we think of this powerful dawa, guys? Like completely
Powerful.
contradicts everything we read in the Muslim sources, and as long as you say it in a completely condescending way, yeah, you Islamophobe, you Islamophobes. That's all you need to impress the dawa fans, and
Yo,
that says
he
something
did a
about dawa
crappy
fans.
video where he tried to argue there was child marriage in Christianity, and he cited like one marriage where like this marriage in France, ChatGPT told him that like this marriage happened when the girl was 6. I looked it up.
Yeah,
She was
no,
actually
not
22
consummate.
years. Yeah, she was
Wait,
actually 22 years older than the guy she married. So ChatGPT got it wildly wrong. Said that she was just a 6-year-old or something. I looked it up. She was actually like full-grown adult, and she was marrying someone who was a young person.
there is one that's Queen Isabella, but there's like 1,000 Queen Isabellas. But there was one who was married when she was 6. All you have to do is go to any article on it. It would say it was a political marriage, and marriage was never consummated because it was just arranged politically, and she was too young. It specifically says she was too young, and therefore the marriage was never consummated. It's like that's the example that you guys use to show that it's okay for Muhammad to actually have sex with a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Is, hey,
No,
here was a political marriage.
Yeah, he brought up Rosala of Italy, who married Robert II of France, but Rosala was older than Robert. But that was like his big thing to go to. Like, it
Hang
just
on,
shows
let's
you
go.
he
Let's
didn't
go and watch. If that's this other video you sent, let's go ahead and check it out.
No, I sent you a different one, I believe. I didn't send you mine.
He does bring up some examples. I didn't pay close attention, but when I was getting the video ready, I saw him saying something about that. So let's go ahead and check it out. Muhammad and Aisha. Here we go. Here we have our good friend whose channel is White Muslim Guy asking about Muhammad and Aisha. Going to give some powerful dawah.
Hey ChatGPT, did Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, really marry a 9-year-old?
Yes, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, when she was 6, and the marriage was consummated when she was 9. This was entirely normal and acceptable for 7th century Arabia.
Prove that.
Look at this. I love this facial expressions. Like, dude, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's again, this is what works with the Dawa fans. As long as you just act shocked. It's so weird and so pathetic. It's like I don't use the word cringe a bunch, but I assume this is where you're supposed to use the word cringe. So, it was totally normal to marry a 6-year-old?
No, not what I found, no.
Yeah,
the earliest
that's all I'm saying is, like, if you're going to make that claim, show us where you're getting that claim.
No. I'm not saying
it's illegal or something like that. I'm saying, was that the average age? Is that just totally, when you say totally normal, it sounds like everyone's doing it and it's just a normal part of life.
No, the earliest I can find is Jews living in Babylon in the 1st century married girls around 12 or 13. And that was much lower than Jews in Palestine, which were marrying in their late teens. So, but no, I cannot find any culture that was just a normal thing to be marrying girls off at 9. Like, those were exceptional cases when they happened, and they were mostly done for like political alliances or family alliances. And often they included stipulations like no consummating the marriage till she's an adult.
Yeah, so what you have here is basically, guys, we don't have a lot of records from pre-Islamic 7th century Arabia to make these kinds of claims. So what ChatGPT is doing is it's getting its information from some Dawa site that made the claim without evidence. So I'm saying, what is the actual evidence for the claim that this is just totally normal back then? Because historically, the most common thing is people are waiting until at least after puberty, if not beyond it. And so the idea that in Arabia, everyone's just going around having sex with prepubescent girls, I'd be interested in what your evidence is for. Muhammad had sex with a prepubescent girl. The Quran allows sex with prepubescent girls. I'm saying, what is your evidence that that was just normal, even like for the population before Islam? So that's one issue. Another big issue here is, think about his defense. His defense is, but it's normal there. Suppose we grant it's normal. Does normal mean it's good? I'm asking that because these same Muslim apologists will say, female infanticide was normal in 7th century Arabia, but Muhammad came and fixed it because it was wrong. It's like, wait a minute, but it was normal. I thought if something is normal in a population, then it's fine and you can't criticize it. That's the rule. That's the rule he's using, right?
Yep,
If something is
yeah.
normal, you can't criticize it. What are you talking about? What was drinking alcohol normal before Muhammad came along?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely. So you can't say it's wrong because it's normal, right? So guys, you can't just defend it by saying, but it was normal at the time. Something can be normal and still be immoral. It can still be wrong. So the question is it wrong? What do you think, IP? Is having sex with a prepubescent girl immoral? Or is it just our difference of opinion or something?
It is definitely immoral and should never happen.
I would agree. And why? It's harmful. It's harmful to the girl. It's harmful, right? All sorts of problems arise when you allow grown men to have sex with prepubescent girls. But let's go ahead and let this guy.
Many other societies throughout history, including Christian ones, marriageable age was determined by biological maturity and societal norms, not by modern standards. Here are past examples from Christian history that prove this was not unique to Islam. 1. King Richard II of England married Isabella of France when she was 6 years old.
Never consummated.
What's that? Yeah.
Never consummated.
Guys, did you catch this? Here we go.
King Richard II of England married Isabella of France when she was 6 years old in 1396. 2.
1396. Guys, think about how stupid this is, because it's for about a million different reasons. Just look at a couple. So 1, never consummated. They never had sex. It was a politically arranged marriage. He was not interested. She's a little girl. They never consummated. He eventually died, and she went off and married someone else. Is that a good response to Muhammad had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl? No. Does he give you any of that information to make an informed decision about whether this is a relevant response? Absolutely not. That's one issue. 2, suppose, hypothetically, that a king had sex with a 6-year-old girl at some point. Would we, IP, would we therefore say it's okay?
No, never.
No, we'd say he's wrong. And if it's someone that far in the past, we might be sort of sympathetic and say, okay, maybe you didn't know that it's actually harmful. Maybe you didn't know that this is bad. So we can cut you some slack for not being aware of it. Now we know that it's harmful. Now we have greater responsibility for avoiding that sort of practice. That's what would happen. We wouldn't say, oh, well, the king in 1396 had sex with a 9-year-old girl. So that means it's good. Did that king drink alcohol? I guess that's fine. Did he eat pork? I guess that's fine. Where do you guys get this idea that if someone in the past did something, you have to grant that it's okay? You don't think like that until you're defending Muhammad, and then suddenly anyone else you can point to in all of history, you go extreme whataboutism. Well, what about this guy in 1396 that did it? No, you can't condemn it. I most certainly can.
And he's not, King Richard is not our pattern of conduct.
That's
He's
the
not
third
a
thing.
Prophet. He's not a prophet either. Like, what do you want?
And so we wouldn't, that's the thing. If he did something wrong, we would say it's wrong. We don't say, oh, he did it, so it must be okay, and we have to say it's fine. What level of idiotic thinking do you have to say anyone in the past who did anything, you now have to grant that it's okay and acceptable?
Yeah, and they'll be like, Thomas Aquinas said it was okay. Thomas Aquinas isn't a biologist or a child psychologist. He's not an expert on those topics. And actually, if you look at the source, he may not even have said it because it's from a source that he only partially wrote. So it's like it's the worst arguments I've ever seen.
Terrible. And this is all dawa. This is like, guys, this guy's given this response. Guess what? Any dawa guy you go to is going to give the same response. But what about Queen Isabella, who was 6? And what's absolutely amazing is even if you correct them on that, they'll still go out and use the same response. So guys, think about this so far. Muhammad, the pattern of conduct in Islam, the one who sets the moral tone for all future generations. His example is that he had sex with a prepubescent girl. The responses we have are, oh, but it was totally normal at the time, and therefore you can't criticize it. 1, I need to see evidence that it's totally normal at the time. 2, if I did see evidence, I wouldn't conclude that it's okay. I would conclude that you had a really sick entire culture that is going around with grown men having sex with prepubescent girls. I would say sick, disgusting, evil culture. That's what I would say. Two, his response is, oh, but if a king marries a girl, even without consummating it, that actually shows that you have to affirm it as okay. On what planet? And three, of course, which one of these kings is a pattern of conduct for us? They're not. That's why if we heard about him saying, we'd say they're wrong. Again, you might not know. You might not know that it's harmful. And so we could say, okay, you were in a state of ignorance. You didn't know that this was bad. We do. So here's the thing. You could say he's ignorant. You could say he's ignorant. A king in the 14th century could be ignorant and not know something. Even though, guess what? He wasn't. He knew, do not touch that girl. She's too young. You catching this? Mm-hmm. This is a random king who's not our pattern of conduct, and he is massively more moral than Muhammad. He's saying, that girl is too young to have sex with. I'm not going to have sex with her. And he never did. He never did. She went and married someone else eventually. So this is supposed to show us that Muhammad is okay in all this, right? So, guys, this is like what is being said that is an actual legitimate defense of anything that Muhammad did, or anything we're talking about. Nothing. Dawa is all deception. It's smoke and mirrors. He doesn't tell you any of this stuff to make an informed decision. He's acting, you Islamophobes, you've been refuted. This is pathetic, man. This is absolutely pathetic. And this is what is popular in Dawa. And again, guys, this isn't just him. You could go to any Dawa guy. They're going to give you the exact same responses. What about Queen of the Billah? What about that? Oh, this refutes you. It's pathetic, man. All right, let's let him finish here.
Hugh Capet's son, Robert II, the Pious, married Rala of Italy when she was about 8 years old. 3.
False.
Saint Agnes.
False. She was 38. She was 38.
You're only off by 38. 17. You're only off by 30
only
years.
Off by 30 years, yeah.
Okay, good.
Rome, a venerated Christian saint, was betrothed at around 12 years old before her martyrdom.
Betrothed. That doesn't even sound like consummation.
And that's happened before Constantine, mind you. We're talking about a pagan culture at that point.
And it's even here, betrothed at 12. At 12.
Europe in the Middle Ages, child marriages were common. This wasn't exploitation. It reflected the realities of their world.
And you just said no? And keep in mind,
according to Kim Phillips, I mean, they were marrying in their late teens to early 20s.
Late teens to early 20s is what the actual research shows, ladies and gentlemen. What happens in these videos? They'll say child marriage because they mean children by today's standard of 18 years old. Younger than 18 years old is a child. And they'll say, you see, they had child marriage. But again, it's similar to equivocation that you're changing the meanings of terms. When we're talking about Muhammad and Aisha, we're talking about prepubescent girls. We're not talking about, she was 3 days before 18 or something like that. We're talking about prepubescent, serious bodily harm to girls who go through this. And this, but this is the defense. All right, let's go ahead and let him finish here.
The fixation on Prophet Muhammad's marriage ignores the global historical context. Judging ancient practices by today's norms is intellectually dishonest as societies evolve.
Why is it Muslims get heat for marrying a child 1,400 years ago, but the thousands of Christians that did it get off scot-free?
Because Muhammad is your pattern of conduct. None of those Christians are. And so it doesn't apply. This is a false analogy for people who don't actually read and they just go to ChatGPT, tell me what I'm supposed to think.
And so dude, you seriously don't get why would Muhammad, who is the pattern of conduct for Muslims around the world, and that Muslims look to now to define what is and is not appropriate conduct, why would you be more concerned about him and not about some king from 800 years ago who has no impact, who no one on the planet takes as a pattern of conduct, and then who you're lying about anyway? This is dawa. It's deception from beginning to end, and the only requirement is say it all in a massively condescending manner. What a bunch of idiots. Because that's the only thing your fans are looking for. Do you sound like you're arrogant? If you sound like you're arrogant, then you're right. This is pathetic. So anyway, but the big takeaway here, white Muslim guy, the big takeaway here, why would we look back at someone, let's suppose it did happen. So instead of Queen Isabella at 6, never being touched and the marriage never being consummated because he said, wow, she's too young. I'm not touching that girl. And she doesn't have sex until she gets married the second time, her second marriage. Suppose a king had sex with a 6-year-old girl. We would look back at that and say, gross, that's wrong. And under no circumstance are we going to say, therefore, it's fine to do because that king did it. It's not going to happen. But we could understand, maybe he didn't know any better. Maybe it was in a different time. We know better, therefore we are morally responsible. Okay. Maybe he didn't know. We know, therefore we are morally responsible. Okay. Does Allah know? Does Allah in the Quran, when he reveals Surah 65, verse 4, which says you can marry, have sex with, divorce, and pass on to the next guy, girls, all before they've ever reached the age of puberty. Did Allah know what we know today when he revealed that and said it's fine in his eternal Quran that still applies today and is supposed to apply until the end? Did he know? Did he know? Or is he ignorant? A king in the 14th century can be ignorant. Are you saying that Allah was ignorant about how harmful child marriage is? That's what you have to say.
Yeah. I mean, child marriage is incredibly harmful. I mean, it causes fistulas. You can cause early death because the hips have not widened enough to birth a child. There was a study done in Latin America that found that if you were 15 and under, you were 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than if you were 16 or older. And again, that's going to get worse the younger you go. So like a 15-year-old's going to have a better chance than like a 13, and a 13 better than a 12. But also comes with all sorts of mental disorders just from it. And then these poor girls raise children and they don't have the social skills to raise children. So their children grow up deficient. And then we're talking about child marriage also correlates with increased rates of intimate partner violence. So these poor girls are suffering from physical issues, mental issues, and then they're getting hit as well by these men who are preying on them. So like there's no justification for this practice at all.
This is really, 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 really messed up, guys. You have serious problems in the world. You have dawa guys out there defending child marriage because that's what their God and their prophet said is a fine, wonderful thing to do. Marrying, having sex with, divorcing, passing on to the next guy, girls, all before they've reached the age of puberty. You've got dawa guys around the world defending it. And then when we bring it up and say, hey, this is actually a harmful practice, we get, well, what about Queen Isabella, whose marriage was never consummated? And it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all deception from beginning to end. And now they've just figured out ways of getting ChatGPT to help them to lie about these things and deceive people. Absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. But that's dawa.